Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at SGCF Academy Live 2022. We have seen the bar industry propel itself despite adversity during these precarious times, where change is common and constant. We understood the need to reinvent our tried methods and support each other as a community to get through the next hurdle. Our first panel for today is Raise the Bar, Stepping into a New Era. Now this panel is moderated by Holly Graham, Managing Editor of Drink Magazine. Joining her on this panel are Agung Prabowo, co-founder of Penicillin Bar and Dead End Dive Bar, Hong Kong. Tiana Ludhani, co-founder of The Daily Tot, Hong Kong. Abhishek George, founder of Spiffy, Dapper and Oriental Elixir, Singapore. Michael Lu, Executive Director of Revolver Asia, Singapore.
Hi everyone. This seminar is stepping into a new era. I'm the moderator, Holly Graham from Drink Magazine. I'm based in Hong Kong. And before we kick off and introduce our panelists, I would like to ask the audience to type something into the chat box. So the question that you should be able to see on your screen is, what are your bar goals for 2022? So if you type those into the chat box, we'll take a look at those afterwards in a word cloud. So I'm going to hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So let's kick off with Tiana.
Hi everyone. So I'm saying hi all the way from Hong Kong. My name is Tiana. I've been in F&B marketing for about 8 years. And when the pandemic kicked off, I'm originally from Barbados. So when the pandemic kicked off, we actually started opening up our own bar called The Daily Tot. It's a rum bar. And we've opened up our second bar called Zura, and now we're on our way to open up 2 more. So the pandemic has been good to us, but at the same time, I'm sure we're facing a lot of challenges, which we're going to talk about today. So nice to meet you all.
Okay, Michael.
Hi. Well, I'm based in Singapore, born in Hong Kong. I've been in restaurants, bars, clubs, music festivals for about 20 years now. I've sort of slowed down on opening bars and restaurants, but now focusing more on production of spirits. So I have a brand called the Oriental Spirits, and we make all Asian range of vodka, gin, whiskey, and an upcoming rum as well.
Awesome. Let's go over to Agung.
Hi everyone, greeting from Hong Kong. My name is Agung Prabowo from Penicillin Bar and Dead End Bar. So nice meeting you all.
Awesome. And last but by no means least, Mr. George.
Hey, George here. Started with the Spiffy Dapper in 2013 and also Oriental Elixir. Also helped to run, co-founded Sego House and Low Tide in Singapore with Jay Gray and Desiree and Joseph Haywood. Also run a small glassware company called Keshu.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, we've got a few questions, and I feel like when this panel was set up, this question has aged terribly already in this few short weeks. So for those of you who don't know, Hong Kong is now back under restrictions. So the question is the future industry challenges that you foresee, but I think that the reality is for our panelists here from Singapore and Hong Kong and a lot of other countries out there, is we're still in the midst of challenges. So I'll go back, start with you again, Tiana. So what's obviously, so bars and restaurants have to close at 6 o'clock in Hong Kong. So what have you guys been doing to combat this and to be nimble and change, with the restrictions? Because we haven't had restrictions for so long. So for it to come back was quite sudden. So what have you been doing?
Well, I think after the 5th time this has happened, the 5th wave, Hong Kong, especially, our community, we've been able to maneuver really quickly because we've just done this. It's been like a copy and paste situation. And I think what is great is that everyone in the community rallies behind the idea that if we have to close at 6, what could we do during the day? So, bottle cocktails is what everyone is doing right now. And then for us, especially coming from a marketing background, I've basically been focusing on more like events that we could do on site that obviously are still safe in terms of social distancing. So we do some trivia afternoons. We did a really awesome one yesterday called the Friends Trivia. We were fully booked out, which was great. And then, we do things like master classes, we do home master classes, we're doing digital master classes as well. And then takeaway cocktail kits. And then with Zura on the other side, we're also doing basically free flows and sets during the week where people can work from the lounge. And there are a few people working from home, but at the moment, the government hasn't mandated that. So it's been a bit tough on the weekdays getting people in when they are in the office, and we have to close at 6. But the weekends, I know that the community is rallying behind supporting local businesses. So we are quite grateful on that, but it is a struggle. I think we just have to keep thinking outside the box on how we can keep bringing in people into the venues by creating experiences and also being able to cover our costs, which is always going to be a challenge. But, in Hong Kong, again, it's been there. This is the 5th time we've done this. So we're pretty much becoming pros at this.
George, I want to ask you, because I think I read something the other day, correct me if I'm wrong, that Singapore's restrictions that are in place at the moment, it's been 22 months now or something. So I know you guys have to close at 10:30, no music. So, you've obviously opened 2 new bars during the pandemic as well. So, I guess, the question is future challenges, but when you opened this bar, you didn't plan to open in a pandemic. So how have you adjusted? Like you went into it opening knowing that there was restrictions. So was there anything you did differently, from Spiffy Dapper opening in normal times to opening Sego and Low Tide in, pandemic time?
But so Sego is a year in the making. So we didn't obviously see any pandemic on the horizon when we were building it. It took us almost a year to build it. So Sego was, March, April, during that process, we opened and we got on it. And once we went through the first lockdown, I personally did not anticipate, the lockdowns that came after that. So when we did Low Tide, the idea was, let's look at the real estate market. It's a good time to get into it. So, we opened Low Tide. So in both cases, we are not really anticipating further lockdowns. What was really hard was from the second and third lockdowns that we did not have music. So that was extremely hard, especially for a venue like Spiffy Dapper or Sego House. We're on second floors. We don't really have a view outside. Nobody can see much. So it was really tough. But yeah, we were not. I think we are optimists, and I think if we were not optimists, we would not be opening at these times. Yeah.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with that. I don't want to dwell too much on the pandemic because we're all probably sick to death of hearing about it. But Michael, I want to hear about some of the stuff you've been doing, because obviously you've got, your fingers in lots of different pies. So how's some ways that you've had to adapt?
Well, I think being an entrepreneur, you really fundamentally need to be an optimist, as George was saying. You have to be agile. And I think there are lots of developments happening, obviously consistently. We just got music back, I think, about a month ago. And of course, that's helped the industry. And, it looks like things might be stabilizing a little bit, fingers crossed. And, with some luck, potentially after Chinese New Year, I think we might hopefully get extended hours, fingers crossed. I think, but it's about being agile. It's about constantly looking at the landscape and adapting. We have no choice. I think the last 2 years have shown we just have to keep adapting and adjusting depending on what happens.
So I want to, obviously we're like I said, we're obviously going to be referencing the pandemic because that is our life right now. But Agung, I have a question for you. You have always been a bit of a trendsetter, and eventually we will come out the other side of this. So what are some things that you see up and coming, or things that you're doing or you're seeing in the Hong Kong scene or globally? Like, what are some trends that you're seeing or that you're going to jump on?
You're on mute.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I'm here. Thank you, Holly. I guess to answer your question, a lot of things that we done in the past couple of years, and then a lot of challenge as well, especially for me as a bar operator. But again, we all been here before and then experienced the challenge, and then as everyone say that what doesn't kill us make us stronger. So to answer your question, what is the going to be trend? Not because I'm like opening the Penicillin as a sustainable bar in Hong Kong, but I guess due to the situations, I guess a lot of bartender around the world or Asia that they really focus on the sustainability or eco-friendly. Not like necessary to open like fully conceptual bar of eco-friendly or sustainably, but I believe that they will put on the drinks or cocktails. Yeah, I guess that's all about what I can see. Right now with this social distancing, what we currently have in Hong Kong, and then we have to make sure that whatever we serve to the guests, make sure that everything comes up like from the local or and then especially how you say again the carbon footprint. We need to reduce this one. So yeah, it's all about sustainability. What I believe what the trends coming up.
Yeah, for sure. I think like locality is something that everyone's had to focus on, and of course it's very sustainable and it's also cheaper, and everyone's had to change their bars to suit different palates and focus more on the local audience. Although I wonder how much we'll be relying a lot more on local produce in Hong Kong with the banning of many cargo flights when our groceries are going to increase by 30%. Michael, what do you see, as someone who runs a spirits business, what are some trends or changes that you think are going to affect, like, particularly the liquor business?
Well, I think, one of my challenges is really that our production, our facilities in Taiwan. So with the restriction in travel, it's been challenging. So there's been a lot of FedExing of samples back and forth. I think we're finally distributing in the UK and in the US starting this year. So I think the opportunity is there at the moment because of some travel restrictions being lifted. Finally, we can do that. We are focused on our key range of 4 spirits, but we have been doing R&D already for a low ABV or non-alcoholic canned drinks as well.
I think that's really interesting. Like non-alcoholic, obviously that's a huge trend at the moment, and we are in the midst of January. Although, like Tiana and Agung was saying, I think dry January's kind of been a bit of a washout. I think a lot of people had good intentions, but now they want to support the bars and the restaurants. But Tiana, you're always very on it with trends. I know you very well, and you always know you're always one step ahead of the game. So what are some changes you're seeing or predicting, like trends wise?
I think in trends, what that really means is like it has to work for the concept. For example, speaking to Agung, he's obviously really trendsetting the idea of carbon footprint and sustainability, and I think that works for his concept. But if we're to copy and paste that for the rest of the bars in Hong Kong, it doesn't always seem to work. I think what works for us, and particularly for me and our concepts, is that we go against the grain. So we know what our core products are, and then we try and think outside the box on that. So for example, enhancing every single experience based on rum is what we want to do. So we introduced like rum flights recently in our new menu. We worked with Martin Hudak from Maybe Sammy to create a collaboration on a cocktail. We worked with Proof & Co to launch our brand new menu. And I think that works for us because it's just enhancing the experience of rum. If we try and jump on every single bandwagon where it comes to every single trend, it starts to feel really washed out and not unique. And I think in Hong Kong, because we are a really small community, we're not a massive country, we have to try and stay within our lane and continue growing within that, as opposed to jumping on every single concept and trying to do too much. Then it starts to not feel as unique. And I think that's what works. Like if with Hong Kong and the cocktail scene, you know, you look at some of the best bars in Hong Kong, they've really enhanced their experiences. And, you know, that includes Penicillin, Quinnery, Koa. They know what they're doing and they do it really well. And then during the pandemic, they just constantly keep enhancing that. And that includes, you know, doing charity functions, doing, you know, working on more of their community service, and then creating things like working on master classes and enhancing their menu offerings. And I think that's what works the best. So with trends, the only advice I can probably give people who are going through this, especially, is try and just focus on your core product and enhancing those experiences. And I think that's what works best.
For sure, great answer. George, going back to, you know, obviously operating bars, and like I said, having had to go through these restrictions for so long, do you think it's almost, even if things go back to normal, is it, I don't want to say like, is the damage irreversible, but people are so used to it now, right? They're going to be used to, well, because you said music has just come back, right? But people are so used to going out and finishing at 10:30 now. Do you think that even if things go back to normal, is that going to change the way people drink and go out and eat? Like, are you seeing or predicting anything changing?
I think one of the fundamental needs as a human being is human connection. So, and I don't think human connection stops at 10:30. So I don't think that's necessary. Right. So I think people want to hang out. People want to spend time together, you know. So I don't think that particular is going to change. I think in Singapore, the biggest challenge is, I feel, from a regulatory perspective, because some things have happened, missteps that happened halfway through the pandemic with KTVs and stuff like that. The civil service is a little bit jumpy with how they are restricting, and it's almost like putting the cocktail bars together with the KTVs and the run-on-the-bill venues. Even though cocktail bars tend to be the venues that actually really put forward responsible drinking. In most cocktail bars, folks aren't running around like crazy. In most places, people are sitting down. We're usually at the forefront of social distancing. We're usually at the forefront of making sure health and safety is there. But sadly, we're kind of being put together with the rest of the crew. And I understand from a civil service perspective, it might be the easiest thing to do. But that's, I think, what's really hurting the business. You know, there are very normal bars that are doing crazy promotions and discounts, but when certain cocktail bars do it becomes like you can't do it, you know, a little bit of policing and social media. So that kind of stuff is going to really change people's perceptions, I feel. If those things kind of slowly get rolled back and you know, and the regulatory atmosphere becomes slightly less panicky, I think the industry will be in an okay place as we come along. That being said, the damage has already been done. You know, some of my favorite venues have closed, like for example, Laut and stuff like that, they've had to close. You know, they have had a fantastic program. You know, there is the regulatory atmosphere is also making a number of programs slim down their offerings. And I don't think that's best. But if we can get through that, I think, you know, it will be better. That also being said, folks are kind of gravitating towards that low ABV, you know, not quite no ABV yet, I feel. But, you know, just slightly more sober nights out. I think that would be interesting to kind of see how that side of the business goes. I'd be exciting as well. I think it's a little bit more healthy. And I think, you know, having that side of the business kind of grow with the rest of that responsible drinking that we really promote with cocktails, I think would be very interesting and exciting to see.
Awesome. I just had a thought pop into my head, and something that I think is whether it's a trend or not that I think will change is when we all can travel freely again, is I think the quality and how we travel in the bar industry, because we all know that, you know, the glory days of 2018, 2019, when everyone was just jet setting around to, you know, to each other's bars, getting smashed in and out. And, you know, I think that, but especially brands as well, have had to rethink how they're spending that money. And I had a really good chat with, I'm sure some of you know Mo Aljaf from Two Schmucks. And those of you who follow, they did an amazing pop-up at Lioness in London. And it was, they actually physically bought the bar. It was the playlist, it was the decor, the signage, all that stuff. And he was saying that he thinks that that's going to be a real like trend in the industry going forward as well, is, that quality of pop-up, rather than just like you behind someone else's bar, you bring the whole experience, because we've been starved of each other's experiences for so long. And of course we want to see each other, but you want to taste that bar as well, especially I think as bars start to open up. As the world starts to open up, it'll be slow. So you want that full experience. But yeah, just wanted to chuck that one in there. So I'm going to ask another question. And I think that we all know very well that our industry is extremely collaborative. We don't tend to be, of course, there's, people competing with each other, but we'd rather see more bars open than closed, So I'll start with Michael. What are some goals that you think that the industry as a community can work towards to sort of improve the situation? Like George is saying, the damage has already been done in some ways. But what can we all do to be better going forward?
Well, I think a lot of it actually, unfortunately, needs to be driven by government, allowing, more restrictions, lifting some restrictions. I think, the interesting thing is, despite the pandemic, there's been more and more venues opening. I think as we just, just within this group already, we know that, we're all opening new venues, even through the pandemic. And I think there seems to be an increase in the number of venues that are opening or scheduled to open in the next, this year. I think all of that bodes well. I think with hopefully with a bit of lifting of restrictions, with more venues coming up, and everyone trying to do something a little bit different and innovating. I think that should help us hopefully rebound. Obviously damage has been done, but I think we're all positive about this year, and we will continue to work and do what we can.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to add to that? I don't want to call upon people, but if anyone's got any thoughts, I can see you nodding, George.
I think it's interesting, right? Like, it's what happens in times like this is market consolidation. When during early days, I've been part of the cocktail bar business in Singapore since 2013. And at that point in time, we had 5 or 7 cocktail bars, and now it's like, I don't even know, right? The scene's changed, a lot of people, but one really cool thing that did happen is indies starting out, right? Like Anthony running Shinjitai or Vijay starting out this crazy bar called Native, and, making one of the best in the world. Like, these are like guys who put their livelihoods and savings and everything on the line. But what has happened with the pandemic and the restrictions is really only the big boys or groups have the ability to start up and innovate. And the indies are going to get left behind. They have been left behind. So unless that gets fixed, innovation's not going to happen. And it feels like a decade of work is down the drain, So that's a very important thing to happen. You can expect, you want the indies to come back up. And in the indies, I feel, are the lifeblood of the industry. They create the crazy stuff that corporates will never approve. But for that to happen, the atmosphere has to go back to being a little bit more risk-taking, which it is not right now, which is, I think that definitely has to be a change that happens so Indians can put their best foot forward, in Singapore at least. I don't know if that is the case in Hong Kong.
I think in Hong Kong, a lot of bars are definitely opening, and the smaller groups, or the individuals that are propping up bars here is like threefold compared to pre-pandemic, I would feel. Obviously, you've got the big conglomerates and the big hotels that are opening up bars and restaurants, but I feel like the smaller groups now are starting to come around, and surprisingly, I would think it would go the opposite, but I think because over here the rents have dropped, the costs have been slowly depleting as well. It's actually quite difficult to even find staff now because it's so saturated, like they're getting picked up so quickly. And I think the hospitality industry has actually grown twofold compared to pre-pandemic. The only issue is, I think, sustaining that. The subsidies here are not as great. You still got to pay your rents and government rates, and I think that's what's been struggling with the smaller bars, because we never know when these lockdowns will come down, and then suddenly, like the fifth wave, it was just left field and 6 o'clock compared to 8, 10, which we used to have. And I think that's what's gonna as well be a downside to these smaller bars opening and smaller restaurants that are opening. And the government has to provide those subsidies to keep those places lasting. Otherwise, it's just going to be a vicious cycle.
I want to just change the conversation slightly, because I think, we'd be remiss to not talk to Agung about sustainability, because, we're talking about going forward into the future and trends, but I think that sustainability has gone way beyond being a trend. It is now a necessity. Like, we are in the middle, teetering on the edge of climate disaster. And, we're also talking about collaboration. So what is something, we all kind of know, we're all familiar enough with sustainability in bars now to know the old tricks. But Agung, I'd love to, obviously I know some of the stuff you do, but I'd love for you to talk more about how you've been collaborating with the local community to, improve your sustainable efforts, like, the oyster shells and things like that. So please tell us about how you collaborate with the local community.
Yeah, sure, Oli. Thank you. I guess to answer your question, is what's the goal actually? I think for me, same with other bar operator around Asia or in the world, that our goal want to be survive these years, But of course, we cannot just do it ourselves, It's like we have a team behind it, and also, we when we open Penicillin, we kind of like we won like every community in Hong Kong, not only just same industry, but we are asking like restaurant, bar, local farms, as well as the fish farms, the honey. So what we do here is actually, like, as I said earlier, that I think sustainability or eco-friendly cocktail will be still in trend 2022, because again, with the restrictions, the shipping, it's not on time, come up to Hong Kong. And yeah, I just want to point out that what we did in the Penicillin, we're collaborating with the local, the nearby restaurant and bar. We're collecting whatever waste that they have. We knock their kitchen, their bars. There's a lot of waste, from other bar and restaurants. So we think, like, why don't we just use their waste, and then we are recycling and upcycling at the same time for our, ingredients, cocktail ingredients, as well as the food ingredients. So yeah, in the return is actually what we do. We talk to them, we talk to the general manager. Hey, listen, we collect your waste at the same time as well. We can give the cocktail ingredients, and we can give them a training how we make this one from the leftover product from other bar or restaurant. And then of course the local community is a lot as well. We are like, although like Hong Kong is very a small city, but we are very lucky that we have like small, a farmer community there that we love to work with them, and then we collect whatever is the ingredient from them. It's like, of course, being sustainable bars, we need to think about seasonal menu. Then we need to like talk to the farmer in advance, like, hey, what do you have for next summer, coming summer. So I guess small group community that help us a lot as well. At the same time also is I learned a lot on the saving a cost as well at the same time, so by like 30 to 40%, from the normal bar that I used to run before, it's very glad that, like the community, bar community, restaurant community in Hong Kong, like they like support each other, But of course, like at Tiana bar, we collect the passion fruit husks from them, we're making, passion fruit husk wine, etc. So yeah, I guess we learned a lot of things from this pandemic, from COVID-19, that we work together, and then we are getting stronger together with the community.
Yeah, and I think that like you said, the sustainability, it's good timing as well, because we do need to focus more on local produce. And like I said, especially with the logistics issues that we're having in Hong Kong, it's like becoming a necessity as well, Okay, guys, so awesome chat. We're going to now move on to our Q&A section. So I'm just waiting for the team. They should be sending me through some questions. But before we move on to that, we're going to look at the word cloud as well. But before we move on to that, has anyone got anything else they want to add before we go to questions?
So far, so good.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. So now they're going to bring up the word cloud so we can see it, hopefully. Okay. All right, let me just make that bigger because I can't see it myself.
On the right track there.
Yeah, I can't actually read that. Give me a second. Now I'm having my own technological issues.
Normal product awareness and sustainability.
Okay, yeah, so I can see some. So obviously we've touched on sustainability. That was what we just talked about. Product awareness, I think that's a really interesting one. So that's their bar goal, someone's bar goals for 2022. I guess Michael,
goals.
Pardon?
I think it's a rep's goals.
Yeah. But yeah, creating product awareness. Sorry, I'm leaning in because I'm trying to read it because I don't have my glasses on. Normal bar hours, that's obviously something that we've discussed a lot. Stay profitable, that's a tough one. What does that say? Expansion. And I think, that goes in nicely what you said, Tiana, like we've seen such a boom in Hong Kong. But yeah, now it's expanding our staff and being able to get new people into Hong Kong so we're not oversaturated. Okay, so let me move on to the questions. I'm just waiting for the team to bring those up too. Okay, here's our first question. Who are some suppliers we can look to start our sustainability journey for the establishment? Agung, I'll let you kick off with this one. So who are some great suppliers to work with regards to sustainability?
Who's asking that question again?
I don't know who that is, just someone from the audience, yeah.
Okay, all right. I guess, of course, being sustainability, we need to think about reducing carbon footprints, less reduce the emissions, things like that. If you can, work along together with the local, distillery, but unfortunately, Hong Kong only have gin, but again, it's worst come to worst that we cannot get the tequila. Tequila must be from Mexico. So that is we work a lot with the Eco Spirit, Proof & Co. Their style of the distribution is actually pretty much same like us. We're doing a closed loop cycle system. So instead of we're just using a single bottle usage. So it's good to have big bulk of the spirits, and then we keep it in the storage, and then we just use it wherever we need it. So I guess so far we work a lot with the local distillery in Hong Kong, which is only gin, unfortunately, and then for others like whiskey, vodka, rum, tequila, and then Calvados. Actually, we work a lot with the Eco Spirit, Proof & Co.
I also think talking about suppliers, to answer that question as well, is not just about working with brands. It is about working with your local fruit and veg suppliers and things like that, and perhaps encouraging them to not use, single-use plastics, or, you have a scheme with them where you give them a box and they return it and things like that. So, it's just about also trying to change, we can't expect the suppliers to do everything. We have to help change their mindset as well. But yeah, has anyone else got anything to add to that sustainable suppliers?
In Singapore, it's a little bit hard because we do not have that much of natural producers to say. But there are some very cool farming startups that's producing stuff in Singapore. I think Sustainer is one. They produce a lot of greens in Singapore hydroponically. I think there's another one called Seafood Culture that does Ikejima/slaughter of fish raised in Singapore. That'd be interesting. But from a booze perspective, it's really, man, Eco Spirits has really changed the game. We throughout the venues, we look at it, and at the end of the day, when we look at the logistics and the ease of use, just having stuff in larger quantities makes a lot of sense. At Oriental Elixir, we actually work with Tangling Gin. We actually try to get it in slightly larger formats because, what's the point of wasting bottles? It's just ridiculous. Now, it's not something that we thought about as an industry, but now when I look at it, I'm like, why am I using 10 bottles from a house pour, which I know I'm going to use it. It literally has no on the shelf value. It's going to sit in my well. It's going to get finished. What's the point of using another piece of expensive glassware and waste that, right? So I think it'd be very interesting if other brands kind of adopt that kind of slightly larger scale packaging, especially for well products.
Yeah, agreed. And just like, I had a discussion with my husband the other day. So he's in the industry and very much into sustainability as well. And I think a comment to a lot of people is, I know we're all intelligent people, but be really mindful of greenwashing as well. A lot of companies will insinuate that they're offering you a solution, but really they're just adding another problem. For example, a brand that won't be named, I got a bottle and it came with this jacket thing on it. And it said, the jacket is made from sustainable materials. But my question was, well, why provide the jacket in the first place? It would be more sustainable to not have the jacket, so just be you got to be careful with things like that as well, and removing that excess. Just a note to the audience, we've got, sorry, go on, John.
In Singapore, one of the biggest things brands should do, I feel, suppliers, get a bloody electric van. Your last mile is what's contributing most to the carbon footprint. Changing small behaviors like that and having the ability to consolidate and, better efficiency in logistics, that is going to provide more sustainability in Singapore from a supplier perspective than most of the other wishy-washy stuff that, the brands put out, right? So it'd be interesting just for, suppliers to kind of start and brands to start thinking about that efficiency aspect of it. Less lauded, but I think it's more important.
For sure. Just a note to the audience. Sorry, Tiana, give me 2 seconds. Just a note to the audience. We've got a few more minutes left for questions, so please type them in if you've got anything burning. Sorry, Tiana, back to you.
Oh, no worries. Just a small thing as well. I think in an initiative that you could do as well, which is just a suggestion, is I've seen this in Hong Kong a lot. We do it at our bars as well. Is that with the takeaway bottle situation, especially since all bars are doing that during restrictions, is actually giving a discount when they come back and buy another cocktail bottle, they bring the same bottle back. And that's just, creating kind of a closed loop cycle of using takeaway bottles and bringing that back and still getting the same product. But, you don't keep using those same bottles constantly. So I know a lot of people in Hong Kong are doing that. They offer discounts when doing that. So it's just a small initiative that if each bar does that, that could save a lot as well.
Yeah. Great question here, which I think touches on, what you talked about earlier, Tiana, with the saturation and hard to, get staff. So someone has asked, how do we encourage more people to join our industry? And I think that's really important because our industry has been, we kind of not the priority as well during a pandemic. We're the first ones to have fingers pointed at us. We're the first ones to be closed down and demonized, and the virus only exists after a certain time, so we must close down. So how, in this new era when there will be a boom, and there is a boom, as Tiana said, in Hong Kong, how do we attract people to join our industry and reassure them that it's a good choice? That's open to anyone who wants to answer that.
Well, from my side, I think we have to call it a spade a spade. There's a huge exodus of people leaving the hospitality industry because it's so volatile, and that there are, non-paid leaves and there's closures and whatnot. I think it comes down to a company philosophy more than anything else and what you're offering, which is loyalty. And, if we're loyal to our staff, they will provide that back. I feel we've kind of had that experience. This is just speaking from a personal experience, but keeping the idea that you've got to protect your staff and they've got to protect you. And that means, staying on and seeing their career path and helping them grow is important. And I think those are initial discussions you need to have within your company and your structure before you even go and attract staff. And for us, small things like providing insurance, providing, a guarantee of no non-paid leave, as much as we can is important, and also creating a career path for them so they know that they're not left behind and they're the first ones to be cut. And I think that's what's really important. Also having a proper mentorship program and having a training program encourages them that it's not all is lost and that we will come out of this, and that there is a way to continue during restrictions. We provide like training programs even on days off. We're closed from Monday to Wednesday because of the restrictions, and we have trainings that come in. We work with suppliers to continue their knowledge of rum and knowledge with other products. And I think that's what encourages them. If they're just sitting at home all the time and feeling like they can't go to work, that's losing a part of them. So we just need to make sure that we've structured a program for them that keeps them mentally healthy and keeps them driven as well. So this is what I feel that works the best.
In Singapore, it's been very interesting because the Singapore government has done a fantastic job of helping to for bar people, for restaurant people, F&B people to attend courses online, and they would pay the restaurants for that, the time that these employees spend on this class. And I think it's been absolutely fantastic. And they rolled it out really fast. They managed it really well. The money came back, in a reasonable enough time. I think from a governmental perspective, Singapore has done fantastic. One of the things that as a group we've tried our best to do is not to put, like Tiana said, give people confidence that they're not just on their axe every day, like their livelihood is not under fire, right? We've managed to get through the pandemic without having to fire anybody because of it. We'll fire people for other reasons, but not because we were locked down. We've often just talked to the folks and say, hey man, this is going to be a tough month. Some parts might be late. We haven't cut any pay. We were late, but we paid everybody in full overtime, and the team has been very understanding. And if our industry is something that just puts the frontline people on the chopping board and cuts them, no matter what you do, nobody will want to work in the business at all. And it's taken a lot of time for it, especially in Singapore. Bartending or being a barista, being in a cocktail bar or restaurant was just the worst job that you could have. But now folks are coming and really joining the industry, and it's very important for the industry to make sure that as business owners, we need to make sure that we are preserving cash flow and not thinking about profitability, but thinking about keeping the team together during this time. And if we don't do that, you can moan all you want about manpower, but the problem really is us. If we don't take that responsibility and push it forward.
We've got just a couple of minutes left, but I think there's a few more questions, but I think one that leads on quite nicely from that was, how did you keep staff motivated during the pandemic? I like the way we're talking about it like that was a thing when it is still happening. So I guess, Agung, it would be a good one for you, because Hong Kong is in restrictions again. So how have you been keeping your staff motivated during these tough times? Apart from giving them shots all the time.
Yeah, Holly, I guess it's very, very difficult as well for, especially for me, a bar operator. And then at the same time, also we need to think about saving some money to pay the rent, to pay their salary, paying the beverage costs. Actually, it's not easy, as us business operators, especially we are like small company, But again, I guess with the current situation that we have right now, not only in Hong Kong, I think around the world as well, that how we motivating them, frankly speaking, it's very easy, for me, because I have to be open to all my staff, in regard to P&L, profit and loss. Then they will understanding about like, hey, what is happening with our company, like for instance, of course, I don't want to give them like, the unpaid leave, etc., or push them to take the annual leave. But, with the situation, the company situation, that we have to let them go, meaning that, to take the unpaid leave or force them to take the annual leave. But at the same time, also we need to be fair to them. Like, hey, look at our P&L. You know, this is we have to be open to them. You know, and of course, at the same time as well, you know, we encourage them as well to do, you know, other part-time job when they do, you know, unpaid leave. You know, some of my bartender or waiter, they do, you know, in other restaurant, you know, or they do kind of like delivery, food panda, you know, delivery, things like that. You know, we don't mind about this one, because as long as, like, you know, I feel bad as well at the same time, you know, as a bar operator, you know, why I have to let them do this kind of things, but at the same time as well, that I have to protect the company, you know, at the same time, and then make sure that, you know, that we are paying their salary, and then the rent, etc. You know, so I guess it's kind of like very dilemma for me, you know, like to let him go and then to keep them stay. But I always, you know, like always talk heart to heart, you know, to every single our staff, you know, to just make sure they're understandings, you know, what happened with us, what happened with the company, what happened with this bar, you know. So I hope that can answer the question.
Oh, so okay, sorry guys, I was going to finish it up, but I've just been told we're getting quite a lot of questions. So I'm going to ask one more. I think this is a great question. We all know, I mean, of course, like bottled cocktails have been really popular, but someone has asked, what has been the most profitable alternative product or service during the pandemic? So I guess Michael, because, you know, again, it's always interesting to hear your perspective because you can offer so many. So what's been like the best, you know, profit for you whilst things were bad?
Well, I don't actually, you know, currently operate any venues in Singapore, but I help and advise quite a few. And, you know, some of these young entrepreneurs have been very quick to pivot, creating virtual brands. So using their kitchen and their facilities to deliver, you know, pastas or curries or whatever it is under a new brand, when their existing venues are unable to obviously bring in customers, and their current product offerings may not be ideal for delivery. So I think adapting and adjusting, again, being able to quickly you know, create a new brand, new products, new recipes, and push it out is critical. They were also very quick to do canned and pouched cocktails. You know, pouches for them at least work better than bottles because just for delivery purposes, weight, all that kind of stuff, breakability. So pouches work better. Cans, of course, are for carbonated beverages. They were very quick to you know, purchase a canning machine and start that process. So those have been very helpful for at least the students that I advise.
Awesome. Okay, guys, we have to end there. Thank you so much to everyone. I think it's been a great conversation. Thank you very much to all you panelists and your contribution. And I can't wait to see what the next seminars have in store because there are 2 more. So if you've got time, audience, then stick around because there's lots more to come. But yeah, we could have talked all day. So thank you so much, guys. And thank you to Singapore Cocktail Festival for having us. And I really hope that we can do it again in person soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.